non-road. It's a sort of a road. It's better than nothing. This North clan apparently is over 100 members strong, which obviously really creates a fascinating dynamic. When we think about our hyenas in the Sabi sand, we kind of know the dynamics pretty much spot on, or the hierarchy. Obviously there's room for error, there's room for doubt, but we've got a fair idea of who slots in where. Whereas with these hyena clans, I think it's far more complicated. The matrilineal lines, so the family lines, let's say the matriarch and her daughters, another hyena and her daughters, I think those family connections play a very intricate role in the way that they interact with each other. And of course the den sites, I think, actually spread. It's not just one termite mound, it's a whole group of them. Speaking of which, I'm really going to have to concentrate because I think I've gone completely wrong. So while I try and get onto the right track, let's go back to Tayla for an update.
Well, we're bumbling about at the moment. We've been actually we weren't bumbling. Bumbling is not what we were doing. We were doing adventure driving. We had to go through a little crossing, and it was quite interesting, but we made it through. It was lots of fun. Really am enjoying the technical driving that we're having to do at the moment, which is loads of fun. But we haven't found any cats just yet. I've been searching. There's plenty of wildebeest in this area, big herds of zebra, lots of topi, impala, Thompson's gazelle. So the diversity around here is absolutely perfect. The only predator I've been seeing so far is a couple of raptors, and then hyenas seem to dominate this area. It's amazing. And that clan that we had earlier, we've moved on just because we're very far away from home, is huge. I mean, we eventually saw where the den was, in a sort of area with quite a few shrubs. I'm sure Jamie and Brent and James and Scott have been here before. I don't know how many hyenas were, but I reckon the amount that were hanging around, and we found another group just sitting off to the side of them, must have been about 50 or 60 hyena, very easily. So I can't wait to come and spend some more time within this area. And I'm actually tracking my route that I'm driving this morning. And we're also, while we're going through here, we're testing signal. It's really nice. David doesn't seem to think he's actually gone this sort of route before or explored too much of these areas. And Darby's been coming this side for quite some time. Hello, zebra! Excuse us, we need to keep going very far from home, and we've got to do a safari this afternoon. Thank you. Spend a bit more time with them then. Sorry, Alice, can I have that again? I'm just going to turn the volume right up. So, Izzy, you're wondering if I could swim with any animal without any sort of danger, what would it be? Elephants. It would have to be elephants. They love water just as much as those hyenas love the water this morning, I think, if not even more. So I think that could be quite amazing to spend a bit of time with them in the water. Yeah, that would be it. Now we're heading towards Lookout Hill. Let's run, Dave. Lookout Hill, which is down in the corner, and we're going to have a look around there. The gate is not far. It's sort of just down here to the right. We've got to cross through there and then we'll be back into the Mara Triangle again. So we're coming right to the end of the Masai Mara National Park. Do you want it to go down this one or on the main road? Okay, we're going to go on the main road now. These main roads are bumpy. Never ever will I complain about how bumpy Triple M is ever again in my life. After the corrugations that you experience out here, it's amazing, and the stretches of road are massive, and the park is just so huge. So maintenance is difficult, and it takes time to get all those areas to sort of resurface the roads and grade. And it doesn't help when you have massive rains like what we have been having, and then cars getting stuck, forming huge ruts. And that's actually our biggest concern, is going through these crossings. That has somebody been stuck here before and tried to get out and then completely sunk? Because for us, if we fall down and our car gets stuck on the chassis, we're not going anywhere, and there's not many people that can tow us out here. But we're going to keep heading down towards the Pungarat gate, the bridge. I'm going to send you back to Tristan, who's of course got Tingana and my favorite leopard Kuchava mating.
Well, yes, Tayla, we are with your favorite leopard, and she's coming of age. She's no longer an innocent teenager. She's now becoming a adult female by the fact that she is mating, and it's such a nice size comparison between the two. Look at the size difference of Tingana's head in relation to Kuchava. You can see he's much bigger in terms of his size. Now, I believe earlier I was listing all these females that Tingana has mated with, and I somehow must have missed Karula's name. I don't know how I've done that. I do apologize about that very, very much. I was thinking of all the leopards that are alive at the moment and that we're still seeing, and I was just trying to think of other leopards that potentially he could have mated with, and I must have just missed Karula. So I do apologize. That, of course, Karula was his queen, so he did mate with her probably more than most of the other females, except maybe Saleh. She mated a lot with her too. So those were probably his two females he spent the most time with. But we know, like I say, that he's done all the rest. And I'm just trying to think of other females that he could have potentially mated with. He wouldn't have mated with Ingrid Dam or Ingrid Dam's cub, as far as I know. He might have mated with Ingrid Dam in the beginning. It's possible. There was also, I'm just trying to think of the other females that we saw around. Quatila, we did mention. Ostrich Koppies, I'm just trying to think if she did mate with ostrich. I mean, if he did mate with ostrich Koppies back in the day. Mvula used to cover her more than anybody else, but maybe he's got in there at one point. Who else would we have seen? He was before in Tima, he didn't mate with her. Sure, I can't think of any of the others now. I'm just trying to think of all the females that we came past. Inkanyeni definitely he would have mated with. Just trying to think of the other females in Buffels Hook. He wouldn't have mated with Sakani or Inchila or Tiani. None of those. So those are all too young still to mate and will come into age at some point. I think that's about it. I think that's pretty much all of them that I can think of. I might have missed one or two. It happens. My brain is a bit sieve-like at some days. So it's still, either way you look at it, a number of different females that he's mated with. I mean, it's a lot of lineages that he's contributed towards, if you think about it. So it's been a busy boy, Tingana, over his life, and he's really held an incredible territory. And it just goes to show how dense the leopard territories are here. If you, as a male leopard, have mated with 10 or 11 or 12 different females in your short span as a dominant male, it really is a dense area. It's in a crazy sort of density that we've got. Roshni, Tingana and Anderson, similar sizes in terms of their territories. So it's difficult to explain it to you without a map, but basically Tingana at the moment is controlling Djuma north of us into Buffels Hook a little bit, and then Torchwood, Nkoro, Cheetah Plains to a degree, and a bit of Nkoro. Now that quarantine, I suppose, has pushed him a little bit, but he was going into Nkoro, and I know you were seen on Nkoro the other day, so it's a bit of Cheetah Plains. Let's call it the western side of Nkoro and Cheetah Plains. And Nets, Chitwa, Little Gowrie, Vessels, into Malamala, Hoffman's, a little bit into Arathusa, up to the Marakeng drainage. That's pretty much where he goes, although lately I haven't seen too much of him that side. I believe he's been spending a lot more time in the east than he has been in the western side. Whereas Anderson, he has that Marakeng drainage, Elephant Plains, Shirley's, Londolozi to the Sand River, and Ottawa, which is about a similar sized area. They kind of cover probably quite similar. I would say maybe Anderson's is slightly on the larger side, but not by much. They're very similar in terms of their territories. I also don't know how far west Anderson pushes. I don't know if he goes deep towards Inyati, but I don't think so, because otherwise we would have had records of them seeing him that side. So I think he's pretty much into central Ottawa and then down towards the Sand River. But I've never seen a photo from Singita of Anderson. I've always seen it from Londolozi or those areas. So maybe Tingana's is slightly bigger. It's difficult to say. I'll ask the Panthera guys and try and find out what the last data in terms of, because they will correlate everything in the sightings and try and work out whose territory seems to span bigger. But Tingana, make no mistake, has got a big territory. He's got probably one of the biggest territories of the male leopards in the Sabi Sands, and so does Anderson. They both control really big areas, and it's because they're big boys. Everyone who thinks Tingana is not big needs to think again. He is a large unit. He has massive shoulders, big thick neck, and he is impressive, to say the least. It's just that Anderson is that much more impressive and has a much sort of scarier look about him than what Tingana does. Tingana seems to have that more kind of a little bit sleepy look, whereas Anderson almost as though he's got fire in his eyes all the time and is death staring everything he looks at. So maybe part of the reason why Anderson just appears so much more kind of, I don't know, maybe hardcore is a good way to describe it, than what Tingana does. But they are not that dissimilar in size. I promise you that Anderson is only slightly taller than Tingana, but is a little bit more wider than what Tingana is. But he doesn't have the neck that Tingana's got. Tingana's got this massive dewlap that Anderson has yet to develop. It will come as he gets older. Remember, Anderson is now 9 years old, so he's still got a few years until his dewlap starts to really develop, and he will be quite amazing to see him when he reaches sort of 11, 12, and see just how big that dewlap is, because Tingana's is just getting bigger by the day. It's almost difficult now to see if he's even got a chin. It's kind of just this one solid mass. Sushin, Kuchava is an interesting one. She, I suppose, doesn't have her own territory that's very well defined just yet. We just know that she spends a lot of time on cheetah plains and nets, a little bit into Nkoro and a little bit into Chitwa. So that's kind of her small little territory that she's forged for herself recently. But now that she's mating, she's going to have to become a far more territorial individual. She's going to have to start scent marking heavily, because if she falls pregnant and she has to have cubs, she needs to protect that area. She needs to try and scent mark and keep other leopards out. And it's going to be tough for her. I mean, Tandi, even though Tandi's spending a lot of time on Djuma, she ranges far. I mean, Tandi was seen a week ago at Nkoro Lodge, so she moves and shifts all over the place, and so I would imagine that, you know, she's going to have a tough time with that. But there is definitely a territory that she can eke out of vessels and nets, Chitwa and Cheetah Plains and a little bit of Nkoro. That will be, I think, where she's going to settle, and I wouldn't be surprised if she gives birth somewhere around the nets, Cheetah Plains, drainage lines, around that area, because we know Tandi has often used Chitwa for her denning, but I think this next den site for Tandi, should she have cubs again, will be on Djuma. I strongly believe that she's going to have her cubs somewhere in the Mulawati. I think that just the amount of time that she's spending in this Mulawati, she's seen lots of different places, and much like Karula used to use these drainages on Djuma, I'm pretty sure Tandi's going to use the same thing, and Kuchava maybe then will get the Chitwa and nets, Cheetah Plains den sites to use for herself. Remember, Tandi, when she had her second litter, and Kuchava was on Cheetah Plains, her first litter was at Nkoro, and then she shifted, and this last litter she's had now was at Chitwa. So you can see how Tandi's movement has been slowly westwards, back in towards her mother's territory and back towards her natal territory when she grew up, which is quite interesting. And I wonder if Kuchava is going to shift a similar way. But she grew up around Cheetah Plains and Chitwa, so that will feel like home for her, and I reckon that's where she's going to want to try and set up. And the fact that she hasn't been pushed out yet means that she probably has set up somewhat of a territory. It's tiny, but it will be a start for her. And this is what happens with young females, as their territory starts off very small, like young males, and in time it will grow and grow and grow until it becomes nice big territory that they're able to utilize. But it looks like they've started to settle for the day, which is really fantastic news. We've come right into the center of Djuma, and so we should be spoilt with another afternoon of these guys mating, which is fantastic, because the more time we can spend with them, the better. And I know a lot of you have not seen much of Kuchava, so this is such a treat that we've had 2 drives of these 2 together, and looks like we'll have a third one this afternoon as we watch them move around Djuma. Now, I'm going to stay here, like I say, to watch if they mate again, but let's go back to Tayla and see if she's negotiated her bumpy, muddy road.
We're surrounded by a troop of olive baboons, and we had the most sweetest sighting I've ever seen. I found my spirit animal. Well, not anymore, just when the adult, the one at the back that is being groomed by another baboon, it was sleeping with its head in the sort of dip of the termite mound with its eyelids closed. enjoying the morning sun, enjoying being pampered. It was hysterical. Actually looks like gone to sleep again. Look, just, well, head on the shoulder this time round. That is so funny. So even the baboons find it hard to resist the lovely morning warmth from the sun. So every now and then when you saw the white, that's the eyelids there. So that's how you can tell when the eyes are closed, is when you see that sort of flash of white. Look at that. Just absolutely loving every minute of this. And it's so important that baboons and animals that are social with one another constantly groom each other. It helps with strengthening the bond, of course. And then, well, the one that's doing the grooming is probably getting little snacks here and there, eating the ticks and any other parasites that may be in the coat of that baboon. But that is so precious. Oh, that's a big male. Oh, you got photobombed there, David. You just walked across your frame. How rude. Do you not know that we're filming a live show here? Isn't he beautiful? No, he's probably charged over just to check the area, make sure that there's no other baboons, other olive baboons trying to come into his troop, although there'll be more than one big male around here. But he is enormous, with a very fluffy coat. Hello, big boy. And he looks particularly well groomed, don't you think? Nice shine to it. He looks very, very healthy, though all the animals out here, well, most of the time, look quite healthy. And very relaxed with us too, which is quite nice. There's actually an abundance of animals around here. Very, very impressive. Right. We're just going to get a car driving around us. Oh, no, never mind. He's going to zip around the other way. Thank you. That was very... You know what impresses me most, I have to tell you, is how all these cars navigate. They're not even in 4x4s like we do. That was a minivan type thing, I suppose. We would call them a taxi in South Africa, and it just up and off went off the road and right past us. Incredible. Probably has got an adaptation and has got 4x4, but nowhere near the clearance that we have. Sort of. Let's carry on. Let's see. There's a couple of teeny tiny baboons. We'll try and see if we can find a really little one. Hello. One day, David. One day it will wave back. I think these animals are so intelligent. Probably not, but I like to think so. There's some little ones also just sitting up on the little termite mound. Everybody's very relaxed this morning. I don't know if it was a big night for the baboons. Not much noise going on over here. Not running around, not racing away from us either. It's a lovely scene, isn't it? So basically we've got to head back in the direction of those hills that you can see. We'll eventually head around there and head back to that massive escarpment where our camp is. It's a fairly big troop of baboon. There must be, maybe, I don't know, probably including the young ones, I'd say about 30. Now, David from Napa, you're wondering who's bigger, an olive baboon or a chukma baboon? I would say the chukma baboon. I haven't actually had a look at the weights, to be honest, so I could be mistaken here. But just by looking at them, I think our baboons get much larger. Maybe they make up in weight with all the hair that they have covering their bodies. Oh, there we go. Standing very obliging, getting those hard-to-reach places. This has been an absolutely fantastic morning, and honestly, just like you could spend hours and hours with elephants, you can do the same thing with baboons. They are so entertaining, from them being very playful and chasing one another around, or just watching the grooming habits of the baboons, or learning about the social structure within a particular troop. Isn't that so cool? Little one probably doesn't want to be groomed. It knows that it has to be. Otherwise, you're going to get all sorts of nasty things. You're going, wait, there's one. I'm just going to do a headstand to try and get away from you. And then Mom going, I'm just going to bite it off with my teeth then. Oh, this is lovely. What a fantastic little family. Here we go. And now they probably will play. Very playful animals. They like to wrestle. That kind of looks like some of the boys in camp when they get a bit rowdy and the testosterone levels are high, and sort of play fight, I suppose. Oh, lovely. Now, Roshni, you're wondering if I've got any memorable baboon experiences? Not any good ones. I'll never forget the day that I was training to be a guide, and I had a break from one of the lectures, and I was going down to my room, I think to fetch a notebook or something like that. And I was walking down, had my headphones in, listening to music, singing, dancing, having a grand old time, not concentrating whatsoever. And just as I got to my room, there was a massive guarri tree, and you know how I love the guarri trees. This one is the guarri UK undulata, the common guarri, and the tree was in full fruit. And by the time I'd looked up, I realized I was surrounded by a troop of baboons, and I went, don't know how great this is. And they're all feeding on the tree. They got a bit of a fright. They jumped down the tree, hung around, and there were lots of big males, and I thought, I better be careful here because they can actually be dangerous. So I just stood still, and I was very close to them. And then the most amazing thing happened. I was watching, oh, look at those little ones are playing again. I was watching this big male, and he walked over to, not a rock, a boulder. I don't know how much it must have weighed, but he took it with one hand. He then lifted it up and grabbed something from underneath, whether it was a scorpion or something that he found delicious, and he put it back down again. And eventually the troop of baboons moved off. I gave them a bit of time. I was now intrigued by this. So, oh, look at the tiny baby. Well spotted, David. Sorry, I'm too busy talking nonsense. Anyways, I went and tried to move that boulder that big baboon had used one hand to move. I couldn't even budget. It was incredible. So that was the day that I learned how strong baboons really are. Oh, so tiny. There's another little one just over there that's coming out. It's on the termite mound. Oh, wow. That's also very tiny. You can see it quite nicely because Mom's sitting out in the open with it now. Isn't that so small? And you look at it, just watching the older ones play around, and one day when you're more steady on your feet and you have a bit more coordination, you'll also be playing with the rest of the troop. So don't worry, don't feel left out now, little monkey. You'll be fine. I saw vervet monkeys as well. They were around a beautiful camp called Olasheki, which is where we spent the night. And I was telling you how I hadn't seen any vervets yet, but I managed to get some. Oh, that is so precious. Now, I hope you're all taking lots of screenshots. Remember to hashtag Safari Live. And it will be nice to see all of these. We don't get to spend quality time with the Chukma baboons in South Africa. They're very, very much afraid of people. And obviously being out here in remote Africa, only really harassing lodges every now and then, they're not too really, well, not scared of us at all. They haven't had too much conflict with humans, which is great. It's really good for us. We can sit and watch them like this. Beautiful. But we need to keep move on. We need to jump into second gear now and head towards the gate. Jamie suspects that she may have uncovered another hyena den.
Well, it's the same one as last night, but uncovered a hyena den is a very strong way of phrasing it. I found a hyena, and we're in the ballpark of where we were last night. The problem is due to phone signal, the location that I put down was accurate only up to about 50 meters. And I'm trying to remember exactly where we were, which you think would be really easy, right? You think it would be, well, you were here last night, you should know, but in the dark, when you can't see, especially with very little light, very little vehicle light, I have absolutely no idea which one of these bushes is hiding the hyena den. So we've got a flat hyena over there. I think it's behind us, but I'm not really 100% certain. Oh, hyena's heads up. Let's have a quick look at that while it's heads up, while it's not flat. Oh, there's the hyena sniffing about. It is also, unfortunately, a bit late in the day to be trying this kind of adventure. It is now 9 o'clock, which means most of the hyenas will have gone to bed now, especially the cubs. They will have ducked down back into their hole. And the truth was, I never actually saw the entrance to the den. I just saw cubs' faces. And because we didn't have our infrared, I immediately took my spotlight off, and I should have done a better search of the area and memorized the landmarks. I assumed I would not forget. I haven't forgotten, I'm just not sure. It all looks different in the daylight. Okay, let's do a quick loop. Hello, hyena. am going to do some loops around this area, see if I can't find some little spotted babies, which of course is what Tingana and Kuchava are busy creating.
Well, we hope so, Jamie. It'll be nice if Kuchava ends up being a mom soon. It'll be very good to have lots of little cubs around. And I think we're going to have exactly what we had last year, should I say, not last time, last year, is when we had a number of females all with cubs at the same time. So I remember that one stage there was Salaesh that had Tiani, we had Shadow with new cubs, we had Karula with her new cubs, we had Tundi with Tumba, and so there was a number of females that were all at the same period having cubs. And so hopefully this will be the same thing again, is that we're going to end up with a situation where Kuchava is having Inkanyeni, Tundi, and who else? Shadow will still be having cubs for a while. She's going to be a little bit of time still. But at least those females, and then there should be Ingrid Dam, young female, and Tiani should be starting to come into their first estrus cycles fairly shortly too. So it could be an explosion of females with cubs soon, which would be really nice. It will be good to see a lot of little ones running around. There's nothing better than little fluffy leopard cubs jumping around and playing around, and hopefully whichever females have, they will have a multiple litter, so not just the one by themselves. It'll be always nice when you get 2 or 3 together, because if you remember with Shongile and Hosana, they play a lot and they tend to have a lot of good fun, whereas when it's just the one cub by itself, it's a lot harder for those cubs. They have to entertain themselves, and generally they have a very different demeanor than what cubs that have siblings are like. Heather, you're asking how often the females go into estrus. Well, Heather, it's obviously a very dependent thing on as to whether they fall pregnant or not. If they fall pregnant, then you'll find obviously they don't come into estrus the entire time that cub is dependent on them, and so that's normally about 1.5 to 2 years that they won't come into estrus. But when they are not cub dependent, then you'll find that it's every couple weeks, so every 3-4 weeks they'll be mating. I remember watching Salaesh mating, I don't even know how many times in the short space of time. I think it was about 3 months, and she must have mated about 5 or 6 times. And she mated with Tingana, she mated with Anderson, so she was a busy girl for that period. And it does happen like that. So it's about every 3 weeks that they'll come into an estrus if it doesn't take. So it's a quick turnaround between mating sessions. Also, it's difficult because sometimes they'll come into a false estrus, so they might even be pregnant, but they come across a male that's different to the one they mated with the first time, and they'll actually mate with him just to try and protect those cubs. So they're not actually in an estrus cycle, but they do it just so that if they are pregnant or they feel like they're going to be pregnant, that they're just protecting that area. So it does happen quite often. And Tundi mating with Tingana recently would have been a false estrus as well. Pretty sure she wasn't actually in heat at all. She's still got a dependent cub in the form of Tumba, and so I don't think she was mating out of proper sort of estrus cycles. It was more just to defend herself within this area. But Kuchava, they did mate again just now, so she's the one that kind of keeps initiating it. Tingana, as you can see, is completely out cold, but every now and then you'll find Kuchava gets up and goes towards her, and she was sleeping flat and then just woke up, started talking, and then went up to him and they mated, and then she went down again. So I'm sure they will do it at some point. It's just the frequency of the mating, now that it's going to get warmer, is going to slow down a bit. In the early morning and late afternoon it's quite frequent, but now in the morning that it starts to get hot, you're going to find that they're going to slow down a bit. And the good news is that they are quite sleepy, so while they might not be exactly where we leave them now this afternoon, I don't think they're going to roam far. I think they'll stay fairly close to where we are now, and we know Tingana from here generally likes to move up towards the dam, so it might be worth just checking the dam cam in the afternoon or even this evening and see if maybe they head up that way. The only thing is they've kind of gone a little bit further east away from the Mulawati, so maybe he's going to take her towards Torchwood more than he's going to take her northwards towards Gari Dam. But we'll see how it plays out. I just think that this afternoon we will find them somewhere close here. It's going to be another hot day. Apparently it's going to be hot and windy today. There's a big fire warning out for the rest of the sunny part of the day, and so I don't think they're going to go far. I think they're going to just stay somewhere in the shade areas and just utilize that, and they'll mate every now and then, but the frequency is going to be much less than what we saw this morning, where they were mating quite regularly. But they look quite tired now, don't they? exquisite bliss, you're wondering how many times they need to mate before they actually conceive. Well, it depends. I mean, it's also a random time. Sometimes they'll mate, and the first time they'll be pregnant. The second time, or the next time they mate, it might take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mating sessions before they fall pregnant. It just depends on the male. It depends on how high his sperm count is, and also depends on how she's ovulating. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. Sometimes, like I say, it can be the first time. Sometimes it takes quite a few times. I remember seeing some of these leopards mating with the same individual male for 6 months before they actually fell pregnant. We know Salesh, towards the end, before she passed away, she had mated for about a 6-month period and still hadn't fallen pregnant yet. So it depends on the way that things go, and it depends on the male and the sperm count, and like I say, how she's ovulating and her body condition that will determine how quickly they fall pregnant. But what I want to show you is I took a photo of it because they were lying in a very cute way just now, and unfortunately they moved, but it was the proverbial romantic holding hands moment. So Senzo, I'm going to try and put it there, if you can try and show that for me. So they were, I just don't want the screen to go off because it does, but there you can see there were 2 little tails that were tucked up together. So that's how they were lying at one stage, little tails moving and just cuddling up together. And that's, like I say, I wonder if it's like the proverbial holding hands in the leopard world. But how cute is that, with the 2 little tails wrapped around? So that was just now when we were off air. They were lying like that just after mating, and then Kuchava got up and she came and lay where she is now. So it was very cool to see. It's not something that I've seen very often, particularly not with a adult male and female. Sometimes see it with mom and cubs where that kind of tangle of tails happens, but in a female and male, and after mating, you generally find they try and separate a little bit. But it seems as though they wanted to just have a little tail cuddle, and it was a very successful one until Kuchava decided, I've had enough and I'm going to go and lie over here. But it's all very sedate now, isn't it? It's gone from chaotic ground hornbills on a kill to Tingana and Kuchava moving towards that area, and then it was Kuchava dashing down into the Mulawati, and now it's all just started to slow down a little bit. But Tingana's popped his head up for some reason. He must have heard something. What did you hear? There's a bit of a breeze, so maybe a rustling of grass or bushes has caused him just to wake up a little bit. Kuchava's still down, so I don't think it's anything to worry about or anything too serious. But wouldn't it be insane if Tundi and Tumba arrive here? That would just throw a cat amongst the pigeons, and it would really be quite something to see the interaction with all 4 of them together. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. After the last few weeks, we've had just the most insane stuff, so who knows? Maybe this afternoon we arrive here and Tundi and Tumba also here, which would be quite cool. It's not far from where we were earlier. Like I say, tracking maybe 300 meters to our north. So if they are around, they will definitely be hearing the noise that these 2 are making when mating. And so I wouldn't be surprised if one of the 2 of them shows up on the scene at some point during the day or into the evening. So hopefully this afternoon it will be an exciting time out here. I don't think they're going to come now, but you never, ever, ever, ever know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. But what I want to show you is also just look at the size of Tingana's paws in the background in comparison to Kuchava's paws. So you can see why males have such big ones. So there's the back legs, which are those more oval shaped paws. But if we go to the front ones, just look at how big those are. They are absolutely massive. They're probably almost the size of my hand in terms of the actual paw size. Obviously the track that they leave behind is not quite the same, because you can see a lot of fur around those paws and a bit of muscle, and the claws obviously have to be sheathed somewhere. But in comparison to Kuchava's, who are a little bit more dainty, see a little bit more sort of oval, they're not as bulky and round as what we see with Tingana. So slightly smaller paw, but she's a big girl. She's not by any stretch of the imagination tiny, and like I say, I think she's actually, I would love to see her and Tundi together, because I think she actually might edge Tundi in terms of size. I think she might actually be a bit taller and a bit bulkier than what Tundi is, especially at the moment with Tundi's little injury. She's going to be not as fit and healthy as what she should be, and obviously Kuchava is in her formative years, whereas Tundi's starting to march on and gets a little bit older. So for those of you who don't know, Tundi's already approaching 11 and a half now. I think it's about 11 and a half or 11. She's almost 11 now, so that's getting older. Remember that Salesh and Kruger both disappeared at 12 years old, so 11 is slowly but surely heading that way. Now the other piece of juicy little news that I've gotten this morning while I've been out on my drive is that Mvula apparently is squaring off with another male leopard on Simbambili. They don't know who the male leopard is, and I have a funny feeling it might be our mystery friend from Buffel's Hook that are squaring up on that side, and apparently it's not too far from our boundary, so they might come back over towards us. But no injuries or damage to either one of them at the moment. It's just they are kind of watching each other, growling and carrying on. It's another vehicle that's coming in. That's why they both sat up to listen, and it might instigate a mating. We'll see what Kuchava does. And sometimes when vehicles do come in, there's a branch that breaks, and the leopards kind of get a little bit sort of wary as to what's happening in case it's an elephant or something like that, and they'll go back to sleep. Once they realize it's a car, you'll find that Tingana will flop back down. He's not going to be too concerned about a vehicle. Seen them many times in his life. And it's crazy. I remember the first few times we started seeing Tingana, we used to see him at Elephant Plains airstrip, and you could not view him for the life of you during the day. It was just impossible. All you would get was this tail running away, and even at night he wasn't the most relaxed individual. I remember the first time I saw him was on Elephant Plains airstrip, and he was crouching in the grass, ears flat, eyes just peeping over the grass, and did not want anything to do with us. And it was only because we saw him from about 100 meters. There we go. So they are going to mate again, which is going to be very cool. See how she kind of presents herself and how they move together. So there we go, and back down they go again. Very cool to see. It's all very violent and very quick, but that's because, well, he has a low sperm count, and so that's why they mate so often, is because he's trying to kind of inseminate her, and you'll find a situation where they have to mate repeatedly because of his low sperm count to try and get into those eggs. Also, she has a short period of estrus, and so they have to mate a lot to try and ensure pregnancy. It's interesting though to watch how some females are different to others, and some females mate for a day or two, others 3-4 days. It's quite an interesting process as they go about their business. We're just waiting for the other vehicle. Oh, there we go, there's our tail cuddle. Jacqueline, you want to know if the male finishes every time they mate, or does the female stop him before they're done at some points? No, never. The female doesn't really want to be with the male that much. How cute is that picture though, the two of them lying together? She doesn't really want to be with him that much. He also wants to get the job done so he can carry on in his territorial patrols, and so with them you'll find a situation that they will try and complete every single time, because she wants to fall pregnant. That drive and that urge and that instinct inside her is that she needs to mate, and she needs to do it every single time. So she won't stop the process before it happens. It'll only be when he's retracting that causes her to actually start turning. You see, he bites her neck and carries on, and only when he's retracting is when she gets a bit of aggressive and stops it. So she wants him to finish up and do his thing, and that's the instinct that is driving her. It's whether or not she wants it or is irrelevant. It's nature's way of doing things, and so that's how it works, is that she just will have to wait until he's done, and then that explosive kind of growling and hissing and clawing happens afterwards. You can see she's just watching the coming and goings of another set of people coming to see her. Yes, you're fast becoming a little rock star today, Kuchava. And I'm surprised how close they're lying together. It's not that common that we see leopards lying this close like this. You often find, most of my experience with females mating with males is that as soon as the female lies in, or the male finished with the female, she then tends to move off and lie somewhere else. So interesting to see how close she lies with him. I wonder if this is one of her first times to mate. I think she's been seen mating once before, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know of any other times. So it'll be still a fairly new concept to her, although she seems to get the idea fairly well and has managed to sort it out and do what she needs to do and get it right. It's quite cool to see the two heads sort of facing opposite directions. It's a cool picture, that, with all of them together. or two of them together, should I say. Now, we have lots of romance in the air, lots of activity up and down, and hearts are definitely racing as Kuchava approaches Tingana and their mate, but I believe Jamie is struggling a little bit to even find anything with a heartbeat in the Mara.
We'll have to try again with the hyena den another day. I think they've all gone to sleep. And I also suspect that there are lots of different den sites in all of these termite mounds. It's going to be very difficult to pick the right one. So we'll come back either in the evening or first thing in the morning when the cubs are out and the adults are about. And that'll make life a great deal easier. So now we're just going to bumble. We're going to bumble on home. I'm going to try and fix my earpiece because it's driving me mental. Come on. There we go. I know that I should just carry surgical tape and just tape it to the back of my ear every day, but it pulls on the hair, you know, catches. I'd have to do some reshaping of it. It's because I left my main earpiece in Brent's vehicle and I haven't claimed it back yet, so I'm using my backup and it just doesn't sit properly. There are so many 2-tracks here. I'm sure this is from researchers going backwards and forwards to hyena dens. Brett, when we do both sunrise and sunset safari, we don't actually have that much time in between, to be honest. Steph's away at the moment. So that involves doing the bits of admin that need to be done, payment and so on, keeping track of all sorts of little things. Yesterday we were busy trying to sort out Pucker's rain covers because we have the guys who designed them and make them. We've got them with us on site at the moment, fixing up everything. And then there was a minor car crash in the car park, nothing serious, but just a bumper bashing. And it just, the time seems to disappear. If we can, we do exercise. There's an airstrip we can go running on. I know quite a few people went for a long walk yesterday around Angama through the sort of the mountain forests and the clearings and the meadows. So that's one of the options. If we do have the time, which I have to confess hasn't happened a lot recently, or in fact in the past 3 months, but if we do have time to go for a little walk, do some birding, there's some amazing birds in the forests, Narina trogons and all sorts of things. A lot of our time is devoted to just, you know, stuff that just takes time. You don't expect it to take as much time as it does, but it does. And you go to fuel the car, but there's no key, so you've got to go find someone, find the key, and so on. So the days pass very quickly. And we generally head out in the afternoons, in theory, around about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we also have meetings where we discuss our plans and how everything's going. Exciting times, exciting times. It's really very nice to go out and just spend a couple of days away from camp, which is of course what Tayla's been up to. She's got to the Mara River and she's found some zebra there.
We have, Jamie, there are masses of animals down here in the, well, southwestern corner of the Mara River, and there's a group of zebra. I think they've just come down to have a drink, but how on earth they got down here baffles me, because it is steep. Coming down may have been okay. How they're going to get back up again, they're going to need some serious 4x4 tread underneath those hooves and perhaps do a little bit of rock climbing. Now the water's up quite a bit. The Mara River is flowing. Even David said he's impressed as to how much the water sort of levels have increased in the last couple of hours really, because we've had so much rain. So I'm not sure what these zebra are going to do, but I have exciting news though. There's masses of wildebeest forming in the distance, not too far from here, but we've got to do a little bit of a loop about to try and get into that area, and hopefully we'll actually have a crossing. I can see them. It looks like they're making their way, so they have to cross from one side to the other. Okay, let's go. Alice, can you please repeat that? So you only came through 1 out of 5 there. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna race along the edge of the Mara River. The wildebeest are just in the distance and seem to be edging closer and closer. But we know what they're like. Let's go to Tristan with his mating cats.
How's that? Is that a bit better, bro? Cool. There we go. So I probably have lost comms again, but now I've just heard it. Thank you, Lou. Sorry about that. But I was just trying to reposition slightly that if she does mate, that Senzo's got a bit more of a room to work with. Where we were parked, there's a overhanging branch, and if she goes forward in front of Tingana again, we're going to have a bit of a problem. So at least this time, we've now have a situation where if she goes in front of Tingana, we should have a nice clear view of her mating, which will be fantastic. So they both seem quite sleepy. Tingana's got his foot on her backside at the moment, which is fairly sort of interesting to say the least. I'm surprised she's allowing it, and he can't be that comfortable the way he's lying at the moment. Maybe it is comfortable, who knows? In the leopard world anything is possible, but they're both fairly relaxed again now that the vehicles have all settled down. You can see they're starting to sleep. It is getting a lot warmer. This temperature has changed in the last, I'd say, half an hour. It's gone from fairly cool to quite warm quite quickly. So we're in a situation now where it's very, very hot, and this shade is probably the best place for them, and there's lots of shade where they are now at the moment. There's lots of nice big tumbuertes, which is perfect place to get shade in the afternoon. So I'm sure this is where we'll find them. I don't think they're going to go far unless they want water, but water from here is a scarce commodity. There is no water really that close. The only water is Tun dams, or maybe they might head up towards Gari Dam. Like I say, those are the only water sources that are fairly sort of close by, but both of them are not exactly close. We know that we've been following them the whole morning from Tun Dam side, so they'd have to go back on their tracks to go get water, which would be quite interesting. If they had to go east, their next closest dam would probably be somewhere in Torchwood, and then there is Chitwa Dam, but both of those are probably further than Gari and Twin Dams at the moment. Oh, she's gone back to sleep and just tucked her head in, so I think it's going to be sleep time for our leopards, although they're saying this and then they keep waking up and starting to mate again, so it's a really weird situation that they kind of stop and then up again. And I'm still super surprised that they didn't go after that ground hornbill, or at least feed on it for a bit. I would have thought Tingana would have just sniffed it out and maybe taken a few bites of it, but nothing. He just sniffed and then let it go and walked off, which is quite strange. They do eat birds quite regularly, particularly when they're younger, so I'm sure a ground hornbill must taste similar to another bird. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe also it was just so badly damaged and so much had been eaten that there wasn't actually much left there, that he just decided to leave it and let it carry on. But it is a very serene scene now all of a sudden. Other than when they mate, it's quite peaceful just sitting here watching them, a little breeze blowing, listening to all the birds of the Mulawati, which there are plenty that are flying around the Mulawati. We've heard lots of drongos, there's been some bush shrikes calling, chin-spot battises, so there's been lots of little sounds coming from that. So we had a a black-headed oriole earlier calling as well. So lots of different birds all around us, and it's just nice to sit here and watch two of the most beautiful cats we have in the world. They enjoy their romantic side of things, and while the birds chirp and everybody else just carries on with their day. Big event for the leopards, but everybody else can't be bothered with them and really probably doesn't worry too much at all. You can see she's a lot more kind of wary though as to what's going on. She opens her eyes quite often, any sort of breeze, and that's, like we were saying the whole morning, is because she's out of her territory, she's going to be a lot more nervous as to what's going on. She's not going to want to attract too much attention to herself, and so better to check and make sure you don't get caught unawares, and she will definitely be looking around, and any noise that happens she's going to check and double check and make sure that they are not intruders coming towards her. Be interesting to see where they go from here though. I'm quite interested to see what the pattern is this evening as to whether they forge deeper into Djuma. We remember when Tingana mated with Tundi, he took her all the way basically to Arethusa, so that was a long way away as well, and right up towards the gate side. So interesting to see where he drags Kuchava over the next 24 hours. They've come quite a long way since last night. Remember, they've come out of Chitwa Dam and then all the way up to this side, and who knows what the route was to get to where they got to. They must have gone through Little Gari, and I wonder if they came across Hosanna on the way, because Hosanna, like I said, was on Little Gari, not too far from where we left these two yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see if he maybe saw them. We know that he sometimes follows around other leopards, so I wonder if he maybe followed them for a bit last night, and wouldn't be surprised we go to Twin Dams this afternoon and Hosanna is lying somewhere there after following the scent of these two up this way. Although he probably doesn't recognize the scent for Kuchava, it's probably a leopard he hasn't spent too much time with. Right, well, our sedate, very calm scene that we've got at the moment with the two that are just resting and sleeping is about to be changed completely, as Tayla McCurdy, I believe, is on the banks of the Mara and chaos is about to erupt.
So we made it around to the spot that I was telling you about. However, I'm a little bit on the disappointed side. I must be completely honest. It sounded like the wildebeest were getting ready to cross. You know, they had their goggles on, their snorkels ready, their flippers to power through the Mara River. That's not what's happening right now. As you can see, a lot of them have sat down, getting to rest up for the day. The zebra have now also turned around. I think, though, if they were to cross here, it would be an impressive crossing. The banks are almost vertically sort of steep. I don't know where they would go down. There's a couple of sort of erosions, and I presume pathways where they could run down, but it would be very, very difficult for them. Even trying to come back up this side, they might actually have to even swim down the other end of the river and cross where it's less of a steep gradient. But for now, I think they're probably going to hang around here. They might only cross this evening. It's very, very difficult to try and gauge when an animal's going to cross. They come back, they go towards the river, then they go back towards the plains, and then they come back again and up and down, and this carries on. And the water is particularly deep today. But we'll see. But I'm not holding my breath. Oh, we've got stampeding wildebeest now. What's chasing them around? You can see them all running there. Something must have given one a fright, and it panicked, and then they all start panicking together. They very, very much have that sheep mentality. And another thing that was quite interesting that Davy and I have been chatting about is at night, the wildebeest are petrified of the spotlight between about 8 and about 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And you literally, if you're scanning and you put it anywhere near them, they run for their lives as if there were 500 lions chasing after them. And then at about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, they're completely relaxed again. They don't care about the spotlight whatsoever when you're scanning about. It's interesting. Because that's half the problem, is you trying to drive around, and especially at the moment with the amount of water that's about, you could quite easily slip into a mud wallow and then just get stuck there forever, all on your own. Well, not forever, but for a long time. And there's definitely some dead zones here where there's no signal, and so you know, you could find yourself in a bit of trouble. So it's important to concentrate. Now having to navigate these roads and stampeding wildebeest and yielding a spotlight, it's not very easy at all. Sometimes I have to give the spotlight to David to shine so I can concentrate on driving. But we'll sit here for a little bit longer and see what they get up to. If not, it might be a good place to come this afternoon. I'm going to send you to Jamie now, who has got some large grey animals marching across the open plains.
While marching across the road and making their way towards the plains, we've got some large grey animals indeed. Wandering slowly in our direction, a herd of elephants, including a couple of youngsters, following after Mum. And it reminds me, because it was in this exact spot, of a moment that Dave and I had one night. We were sitting with the two young males that spend a lot of time, or did spend a lot of time in this area, and I'd heard elephants, but it's difficult to gauge exactly how far away they are. And all of a sudden I just heard this very soft scuff sound and realized that we were right in their pathway, and they'd moved up right behind us and then parted on either side of us and stopped to feed right next to the vehicle. And much like the wildebeest, elephants aren't fans of light. They don't particularly like bright light, so we just sat in complete darkness, surrounded by elephants close enough to touch, feeding next to us, breathing softly, and because it was dark, or of course your sense of hearing is so heightened, all we could hear was them scuffing around us and the sound of their skin, that sort of leathery sound as they flapped their ears. It was really beautiful to experience. Little ones right next to us, and completely unconcerned. They knew what we were, they knew we were there, and we just sat quietly and quite still and let them move about us. And it took them about, I would say, at least 40 minutes of just standing right next to the car before they moved on. Then they chased the lions, and the lions ran away, and then we couldn't find the lions again for about a good hour. But that's a different part of the story. Those moments are really lovely at night. Brad, we're actually quite far away at the moment from these elephants. They are probably, by our standards. Of course, it's very difficult to judge the distance with the camera. We're probably about, I would say 60 feet. No, a bit more. Maybe even 90 feet away from them at the moment. So quite far away. The best idea with animals is, of course, oh, Mom wants whatever that one's munching on. Pushed it out of the way. With elephants, the best way is to let them approach you, and often, if they get that choice, they'll come right up to the vehicle within feet of us, within touching distance at times. And it's very much an individual thing, so it depends on the animal that we're with, it depends on that particular individual animal. So we were with the lions earlier, and I said that they have quite a firm comfort space, and we can get within about, I would say, 60 feet of them, and then after that the females start to get uncomfortable. So we never push beyond that boundary. With Tingana and Kuchava, the leopards in the sands, you can get, they'll come and lie in the shade of your vehicle quite happily. Though we do get very, very close at times to the creatures that we work with, which is special and an absolute privilege, and one, of course, that we would never abuse. And it's not dangerous, provided you are careful and watching all the time, know exactly what you're doing, keeping an eye on the way that the animal is responding to you. So if we watch these elephants are coming towards us, you can position yourself in a way that will get you not in their way, but close enough that they will walk right past you without being bothered at all. It's a delicate balance. A lot of the time with the elephants here, we find ourselves quite far away. I could go off-roading and I could probably get right up close to that elephant, but it's not necessary. We've got the amazing zoom on our cameras. There's no point in upsetting the animals just so that we can get closer. And you'll find that it differs between day and night as well. There's certain animals that you can get much closer to at night than you can during the day. There's a lioness belonging to the Egyptian goose pride, or at least she spends time around their area, and she's very nervous during the day. And then at night, she relaxes completely. She'll come and walk right past you. The animal's behavior will change depending on the circumstances. Riti, no. Not really. It's difficult for us to know the exact motivations behind elephants, but they're not... You find that there's often videos of elephants saving other creatures from predators. If a lion were to come along, no, the elephant's not aiming to help the wildebeest. The elephant is aiming to chase the lion away. And that's simply because elephants don't like predators. They smell bad. They chase them. Especially wild dogs, which is interesting because, of course, wild dogs are not a threat to elephants in any way, but they really, really don't like them, and they'll go and they'll chase them. And, it's difficult for us to exactly tell you what motivates the animals, but I would say it's unlikely a spirit of generosity that causes them to go and chase a predator away. It's just simply instinct. Tells them to go and chase a predator. If it happens to help the poor hapless wildebeest, well, all the better for the wildebeest. It's like that, those series of photos of the rhino helping the zebra out of the mud. And that actually has absolutely nothing to do with the rhino's desire to save the zebra. It was just in the mud wallow that the rhino wanted to be in, and ultimately that story ended with the poor baby zebra being speared by the rhino horn. Now, talking about Ellies at night, Danielle, elephants can see okay at night. They probably see better than we do. Their vision is not fantastic at the best of times. Hello, little Ellie. Can you come and say hello? Their vision is not particularly great anyway. The youngsters have I think, slightly more acute vision than the adults. But they rely far more on their sense of hearing and their sense of smell than they do on their sense of sight. They're very movement-based. They pick up on movement quickly and clearly. And at night, I think they probably see marginally better than us. Enough that they don't just stop at night and go to sleep. They'll still wander about. They'll walk around and feed. They don't all go to sleep, like primates do, for example. Or humans do, with our incredibly poor night vision. Hey, little elephant. You're big enough to have tusks. Where are your tusks? Late bloomer. Right, we're going to go and carry on back in the direction of the sausages, who I'm sure are cuddling together very happily. Let's go and find out whether or not the mating leopards are doing the same.
Well, they were cuddling and they were very sleepy, but all of a sudden Tingana has woken up, and I suppose he is cuddling a little bit. There's a little grooming going on. And I wonder if he's maybe going to decide to move. I hope not. I hope they're going to end up sleeping here for the day. You can see she's now awake as well, and so maybe we're going to get a little mating going on, which is about what it looks like is about to happen, which is very cool to see. So you can see how she just bashes him around. Unfortunately, he gets really hurt. Well, not hurt, but like hit around, and it's not an easy process for him over the next little bit. So it's amazing. Every time you guys come to us, we end up with mating. They've been absolutely fast asleep, and we've had mating every time we've pretty much gone live, which is really cool. But I think that might be it for a little bit. They're going to probably sleep now for quite some time. So I think on that note, it's a very successful way to leave our sighting and let them carry on with their morning, because it's been a wonderful morning spent with these two individuals. You can see she's just rubbing the back of her neck. Maybe it's a little sore. Also get his saliva off her neck, maybe. Maybe she doesn't like it when he drools on her. Don't worry, Kuchava. I don't think many ladies do like it when men drool on them. So you're all good. I just want to see if she settles. Yeah, she's going to settle there. Right. So I think we'll leave them to it, like I say, and let them carry on with their morning. We're going to try and get out of this thicket that we're in, and that was a magic way to spend the day, that's for sure. So it was really perfect for us, because literally they mated as we came back to us. So I'm really glad about that, because it was all quite sedate before that happened. Now, I'm just going to turn around, and while I'm turning around, I believe Tayla McCurdy is at the river and has got a very cute baby hippopotamus.
Hello again. We're not all the wildebeest. We've got something exceptionally cute to show you. I know how excited you are all going to be. Of course, we've been focusing on the migration, as most of you know, and watching lions take down things, cheetah taking down things, hyenas taking on things. How absolutely precious is that little hippopotamus. Now, that's very young. It is so small. It's the smallest one I've seen since I've been here. And Mom has actually moved away from the pod, which says to me that perhaps it's maybe only a couple of weeks old. It's really tiny and gets a little bit tired and will probably get pushed and shoved around quite a bit in the pod. So she's decided to just take a bit of a back seat for the moment, just until that little one is able to, well, move around in the water comfortably, especially because the water is so high at the moment. It must be quite tough to sit in their normal shallow spots, but she has found a little bit of the embankment where that one can sit quite comfortably. And also the current of the river is quite strong, so I'm sure this little one will really struggle to be able to, well, maneuver around. But isn't that so precious? Now, Eduardo, you're very excited to see a baby hippo. I can see why. There must be one of the cutest little animals. Although we're very lucky, we get to see, well, small animals of all kinds, and they're all precious in their own way. But the chubbiness of a young hippo calf is so precious. Now, obviously, it's not really doing much justice to sort of showing you how small it actually is. But do you remember those hippos we had the other morning that were outside the water, and the one young hippo calf was biting the foot of the other? If you take that hippopotamus and you divide it by a third, that is the size of this one. It is small. It is very, very, very new. Very lucky. But I think that's fantastic. Well, they're obviously not doing too much, unfortunately, but we know where it is. I'm going to come back here. I think I actually might come here this afternoon again. I think this could be productive. Just in terms of a potential crossing, I don't know if those zebra and wildebeest are going to cross now. I think they might cross a little bit later. We'll try and leave as early as we can to get to the spot this afternoon, and then we'll come and have a look at our little hippopotamus. Maybe it's feeling a bit more active. Probably had a long day walking around, well, long evening, sorry, walking around with mom and those tired little legs. You can see it's absolutely exhausted. There's no energy whatsoever, so it needs to sleep, regain some of that energy, maybe have a drink of milk. I'm sure it's going to have a drink of milk. That will definitely get the energy levels up again. So we're basically heading around now. We'll eventually get to the Kruger gate. We've still got a bit of time to go, hey, you think, David? What, maybe another 40 minutes? Oh, no, although, no, it shouldn't be. Should we check the GPS? I had the GPS on. Oh, no, I've exited it. We have to look. Just as a guideline, the only thing that I'm really annoyed about my GPS is it keeps telling me to make a U-turn. Take a right, and I'm like, there's no road. I can't take a right. There's nowhere that I can go. But let's see if it picks us up. Kurungat. Oh, we're only 3.2 kilometers away, says my GPS. 6 minutes, Darby. We're not far at all. Well, that's 6 minutes, and I think that the GPS wants me to just cut across the river, you know, just jump across to the other side. You can't do that. We have to go the scenic way around. Oh, hello, buffalo. Some Duggar boys, by the looks of it, just feeding in the grass. We'll just drive past them very slowly. Hello, boys. 3 of them, giving us a death stare as usual. Nothing new there. And then, hello, Impala of the Mara. Oh, I gave that one a fright. Obviously shouted that a bit loudly. Quite nice to see, though. We're not going to stop. We're just having quick looks at them as we go along. Looking fit and healthy. Not too many. Actually, no little lambs. Oh, no, the lambs are at the back. They're around. I thought for a minute these ones are a bit late. Right, so we'll just carry on. Hi, Impala. Oh, we've got to sneak through them now. We have a roadblock. Yes, I think it's very, very intelligent of you to be cautious approaching that tree line. Who knows what's lurking under those bushes? Could be pride lions, could be a leopard, could be anything around there. Be careful, ladies. Now, Sergey, you're wondering what is my favorite safari joke? I feel like I've told them too many times now, but my all-time favorite has to be the one about the dung beetle. It really makes me chuckle. So it is, for those of you that have heard it, I'm sorry you have to hear it again, and it goes, a dung beetle walks into a bar and says to the bartender, is this stool taken? Oh, hang on. Just, you know what I've been dying to do? I have an app. David, you have not seen this app yet, eh? Oh, it's great. Actually, I need to use it. I've got to find the right one. I think it's this one. Maybe have to turn the volume up, though. No? I'm supposed to be using that after all of my jokes, and then we even have whips for, oh, and then when no one laughs, I think this is one. So great, so you know, people can find my joke. Oh, we've got crowds of people. So yeah, I can just keep myself entertained for hours, and then this, I have one for David when he gets out of hand, because that actually happens quite often. We've got to find it. It might be a different app. Where is it? I've got an app called Thug Life. I don't know what's wrong with me. Oh, here we go. You ready, David? Let's hope it's the right one. Keep that whip cracking. Right, I'm only teasing, of course. But I will try and use them more strategically. I actually completely forgot. I downloaded those. I don't know how long ago. Alice, when did I download those apps? We did it one night. Oh yeah, it was when we were still at Djuma, and I just completely forgot about it. So it must have been a month or two ago at least. And well, there it is. Anyways, we'll keep searching on and see if we can find more appropriate ways to use that app. I'm going to send you to Jamie while we cross the Mara Bridge.
Oh, Tayla, keeping us all thoroughly entertained. Oh, while Tayla goes across the Mara Bridge, we've got this lovely zebra foal. I don't think it's the same one that we saw a couple of weeks ago, but it is much, much lighter in colour than the rest of the zebra around us. It's almost brown in patches, and so fluffy. Look at the stripes on its bottom. When you compare it, have a look. There, it's going to walk up to the rest of the adults. Look at it now. Have a look at the brown colour when you compare. And of course, all zebra foals are much lighter than the adults, but some of them more so than others. That's a beautiful comparison. First of all, you can see just how fluffy it is. And there's another one coming in. And also, you can really see the colour difference with the adults, both with the foal on the left and the one on the right. Sweet, huh? Little fluffy zebras. I'm sure there's a safari joke about a zebra. I never remember jokes. I'm more of a pun-based sense of humour than I am... Well, I suppose jokes are mainly puns. I mean, there's the famous one about the gambling. Why is gambling illegal when you're on safari? It's because there's so many cheaters. Ha ha. Maybe that only applies on the other side. Just Manu thought it was funny. Manu might be the only person in the world who thought it was funny. I don't think it applies in the Mara Triangle, though. Haven't seen one of them in a while. I don't know. There's lots of them, but now that I'm thinking about them, I can never remember a good joke. I'm very bad at it. There's a whole host of GNU-based puns that you all shared with us a couple of weeks ago. Talking about good news and fake news and... See, I can't even remember all of those. I can remember lyrics of a song I listened to once 10 years ago, or songs I hear on the radio that I find myself singing along to with no idea how I ever remember those lyrics. But jokes? No. Well, why don't you, I'm sure you will actually, inspired by Tayla, share with us your favourite safari-themed jokes. There must be lots. There must be a zebra one. Right, well, you've heard from the Mara Comedy Club, or at least one half of it, I'm not sure I count. Let's go and see if the Djuma Comedy Club is feeling up to scratch.
I don't know, Jamie. I'm like you. I suffer from serious mental failure when it comes to jokes. I always forget them, and quite frankly, I'm actually surprised about this whole safari joke thing. I didn't even know there was such a thing as safari jokes. Honestly, I've never really heard people talking about them, and I'm surprised that Tayla and Jamie both have one. It is quite funny that they do. We'll have to think about it and try and remember if I've heard any, but at this stage I'm just watching our little Steenbok, who is probably as petrified as anything, because in the distance all I can hear is these leopards mating. They've mated twice since we left, and this poor little Steenbok is in the firing line if they decide to start moving towards the Mulawati, and it doesn't seem too perturbed by things. It's quite a relaxed Steenbok, actually. It's the one that we see quite regularly. It's a little young male. It's not fully grown yet. You can see tiny little horns that are coming off its head. They are not in any way grown at all. So maybe this is a young one for a pair that lives around here, and that could be what Kuchava saw earlier when she went running down towards the Mulawati. Maybe she spotted a little Steenbok in this area, and that's why she was dive bombing and trying to get to it. Now there's also a very, very, very pretty bird that I've just spotted that is bouncing around on my left hand side. So before we carry on, there is this beautiful black-headed oriole. Now you see, Senzo, if you look above the branch that goes to the left, the main branch that goes to the left, just above that should be where you'll see it. So the left hand branch of this bush willow tree, Where's it gone now? I've just missed it. It's now hopped somewhere else. It was there. Have you got it in the center there? Somewhere on the left is where it was. I can't see it now. It's been hopping around in that bush the whole time I was looking at the Steenbok. And Lou says you guys can't see anything. Okay, well, let me try go forward a bit. Maybe it's just behind a branch or something. I'm going to just try and edge forward a little bit. Where did you go, black-headed Oriole? You were there 2 seconds ago. Must have flown away, unfortunately. Nope, not in there anymore. That's quite a bright yellow bird, so it's not exactly the most difficult thing to see in the world, and so I'm pretty sure we would have spotted it had it been there. Nope, must have flown away. But back to our safari jokes. Honestly, it's quite funny because, like I say, I've never actually heard anybody even tell me any of these jokes before, so I must be missing out on a whole culture. I'll have to get hold of Tayla and Jamie and find out where this all comes from and who created safari jokes, because I promise you I have never heard any of them before, and I was even giggling a little bit at Tayla and Jamie, and not that they were funny jokes, but well, at least they had something for them. So I'll have to do a bit of research. Maybe this afternoon the Djuma Comedy Club can come together. Lou, do you know any safari jokes? Lou's always full of awesome information and jokes and all kinds of things, so maybe Lou, you're out there? Do you know any? Maybe I don't have any comms with Lou anymore, or she doesn't know them. Either way, at this stage I can't hear her. So, Senzo, can you hear Lou? No, I can't hear Lou at all, so... Well, Lou, if you do know jokes, it's not going to happen today because I can't hear you, and therefore you can't tell us your joke if you do have them. Which is also a bit of a problem because ultimately at the end of the day I do kind of need to hear Lou at some point. I need to know what's going on, so it would be nice if I could get some semblance. There we go, Lou, you're back. So Lou, any jokes that you've got? Lou is quiet. Yeah, there we go. So Lou says I can't even repeat that, Lou. I'm sorry. That is so. Yeah, Lou says that she doesn't have the correct qualifications. Really, Lou? Really? It was quite funny, actually. I did giggle. Now, in front of me here, you can see there's a little landmine. Oh, that one I've heard before. There's one that we can use, and that Lou reckons my opinion is irrelevant. Da-da-dum. Well done, Lou. Anyway, like I said, there is some dung in the sort of riverbed section that I'm going to try and avoid as much as possible. It's just here in front of me, which is a pile of leopard dung, and it is from where I was tracking this morning, so it gives you an indication of just how close we are to where I was this morning. That dung was very fresh this morning. It was still moist and soft, and so it was most definitely done in this area, and this is a female leopard that did this, and obviously we know Tingana and Kuchava have come from the south, so maybe Tandi's also lurking somewhere around here. I'm going to just do one last little loop past and see if we can find it, and the reason why I know it's leopard dung is not only because of its footprints associated with it, it's just covered in fur, and it's the same right size that you would see on a leopard's defecation. Where did you go, leopard? I'm still baffled by this leopard that was here, because it was most certainly a leopard in this area. I'm 100% sure of it. I just don't know which way it ended up going. It ran off from that side into this thicket, so I don't know, maybe it's somewhere in the shade. We'll try to find it this afternoon sometime. We might get lucky and it's somewhere in this general vicinity. I might, of course, have just completely looked over it, but given that we found 2 other leopards, I'm not going to complain too much. There's a whole bunch of Franklins. They're not what I'm looking for. As much as I like Franklins, we were hoping that it would be a leopard creeping through the bush. Anyway, we'll leave that for this afternoon. Like I say, we've had more than enough spots this morning, and we've been treated by them, so we'll carry on. So Mita, who's 8 years old, hello Mita, it's been a while since I've heard from you. I hope you're well and that everything is good, and it's good to hear that you're watching again today and you have a joke for us. And so it goes, hopefully I'll remember how it went. Lou, if you can just repeat the first part for me, because I've got the punchline. I just got to remember the first part now. Lou, where are you? Ah, there we go. So what did the leopard say after eating its meal? That hit the spot. James would love this. James would be in his element with all of these ridiculous jokes that we're telling. But thank you, Mita. That was a very good one. I like that one. So, and it's very apt for the theme of the morning with all the leopards that we've got. So I'm glad that you are around and that you shared it with us. So thank you very much. Like I say, Mita is a regular that often asks lots of questions, and I always like Mita's questions. They are full of interest and intrigue. So I always like spending time listening and asking, or answering Mita's questions. She's very thoughtful for an 8-year-old. What were you that's just flown away? No, don't bank that way because I want to see what you are. Oh no, it's now going into the sun. Sorry, Senzo. I can't see it anymore, but there it goes. It looks like a little sparrowhawk that's flying above us. So I wanted to stop and land somewhere, but it's not going to. Of course, it's going to fly in and out of the sun so that I can't see it, and well, we're just going to leave it there. Now, unfortunately, it is that time of the day. It is unfortunately time for us to finish up for the morning and start heading back to happiness in the form of breakfast. And so we are going to start slowly but surely heading that way. I think the two girls in the Maras, Tayla's still on the other side of the river. Hopefully she will get a crossing at some point, and well, Jamie, I think, is probably going to start heading back home. So I think that's the plan for the two ladies that side. The comedy club, maybe they're going to also work on their jokes. We know that Djuma Comedy Club needs to seriously work on theirs because, well, what we've displayed this morning is anything but what needs to be done. So that's the end of that, I think. And like I say, we're going to amble our way home while this lilac-breasted roller is making an absolute noise to the left of us here and is busy moving off and out of this area. But like I say, from Tayla, and I'm not sure, maybe Manu with Jamie, I'm sure they send their best farewells, and I'm sure they're looking forward to seeing you this afternoon. And from myself and Senzo, we've had an absolutely wonderful morning. We've really enjoyed having you all along for the ride as we've followed our romantic couple on their endeavors, and we will try and get there again this afternoon and see if they're still up to it. So we'll see you all on the Sunset Safari.